Well, great. Thanks for coming to the mini talk on Linux and mirroring. But I'm going to move on to the software patents after Alice, a long and sad tale. And hopefully the bunnies will stay where they're supposed to stay. Alice was a Supreme Court case on software patents that the decision came down June 18, 2014. It takes the legal precedences a while to kind of wend their way through other court cases and be sort of felt and understood. So, you know, what happens, the Supreme Court makes a decision and then the lower courts are kind of like, it's a lot of like, I'm sure the word is in this setting means something different than what I used to think it meant and all these types of things. So it takes a little while for us to fully understand the impact of a particular court case. So today I'm going to talk about what Alice means for the U.S. patent system, what it did not do, a little bit about how that fits into the global patent landscape, and then what we can do about that, where we have policy levers to affect that process. I'm going to say hold general questions to the end, but if I use a legal term you don't understand, go ahead and raise your hand and let me know. So Alice puts a new standard for testing whether or not a patent is legitimate or not. So basically, every court case that gets brought on a patent, software patent, any type of patent, is one person saying either, I don't think that patent should have been issued, or the patent doesn't apply to what I'm doing. So it's two different parties. The Alice decision gave us two steps to say, is this thing, should it be a patent? The first step, the first step is kind of looking at whether it's abstract. So the previous scope of patentability was pretty ridiculous. It was basically, you could say, I have some math or some stuff or some whatever, and then in order to satisfy the scope of patentability in the U.S., you would say it's on a physical device. So it's not just math, it's comma on a computer. Or it's not just an algorithm or a sequence of numbers. It's on a network or over the internet. And that would satisfy the U.S. Patent Office's desire for there to be not just math, but plus a physical device. So that was where we had this huge overflow of fairly ridiculous and frivolous patents. So Alice, step one, says, is there something abstract here? So first you want to say, is there something that's math? Is there something that's just sort of an idea? Is there something that's like a feeling, or maybe something just about the way human beings are, like the way our eyes work or something like that? Like something really intangible that is not supposed to be patentable. And then step two, is the additional piece of it merely on a computer, on a network, over the internet? Is it, a general purpose computer that is not, it's not novel, it's not a new invention. Putting one non-patentable thing, an abstract idea, on something that's also not novel doesn't make a patent. And that's new for the Supreme Court system. In their defense, the way that patents are written are fairly dense in their own language. It's kind of hard to figure out exactly what's being talked about a lot of the time. But they did kind of finally figure out, wait a second, this is another one of those where it's 70 pages of crap that isn't patentable, and then you're using it on a computer. And so the courts finally said, we're not having that. So no more patents for on a computer or via the internet, which is great. And you might think, cool, I'm done. I can just go to the other talk now. Except that we have a lot of patents on the books that were issued under this. And there are a couple of other reasons why we're not quite done yet, unfortunately. So the impact that the Alice case had on the U.S. patent system, immediately after, so remember I said that was June, 830 patent applications were withdrawn. Just in the first month and a half. We're oh, clearly you're not going to let me have that as a patent because it was blah, 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 blah on a computer. And so 830 people who probably got paid $400 an hour to write those patent applications were it's billable, but I guess we're probably not going to get that one. Oh, well. Oops, sorry. Wrong person. Initially, the suits that were being brought on software patent stuff and pharma were down by about 40%, while people were trying to figure out, like, what kinds of patents can we still bring to court. And I read these blogs, so you don't have to, but there were a lot of people complaining about, they're like, our livelihoods are gone, and, things like that. This is the way that the courts, the lower courts, like the Federal Circuit, the Patent Trial and Appeal Board, and the Federal Circuit, ruled when they did invoke Alice. 51% of the time they said, no, that is an abstract idea implemented on a generic computer. Get out of my court, I'm done. Which is great. There are other ones where it's an abstract idea and a mental process. Like lots of different things. You can see all these abstract ideas where they were like, that's an abstract idea with a not particularly novel implementation. And this is, I'll make these slides available, but this paper by Jasper Tran, it's a short one, it's written in regular English, and it has a really great breakdown of the way that the courts have handled the Alice decision. So in total, 286 of the invalidations in the first year after Alice were tossed out, and that means people were, this is probably optimistic, but they were saying like maybe as many as 83% of the patents that are currently on the books are totally bunk. And everyone's like, wow, awesome, that's great. Unless you consider that also there's probably 240,000 software patents on the books, so 20% of 240,000 is still a lot of software patents. A few things that the courts knocked out. This one, Digitech, is it's an imaging thing, so it's taking one set of data and another set of data and combining them. And the courts there said, like, yeah, those are two abstract things mixed together, like even the same kind of abstract thing, implemented on a generic computer, so no. This was a case about bingo online. And they said, yeah, bingo, not novel. Doing it on the internet, also not novel, so no. This was one about creating a contractual relationship online. But, online, right? Plus 70 pages of, like, irritating tech verbiage. And the court said, no. And there were some other cases, even at the Supreme Court level, that gave the lower courts some other guidance as far as like what they could finally say no to. This one, the Mayo versus Prometheus. This was data gathering plus a simple mental step, but it also, I think, part of the reason that this one got a lot of attention is it's a real David and Goliath story. Mayo is a clinic that helps patients who can't afford more expensive care. And Prometheus is a huge pharma business. And Prometheus invented injecting a patient with a particular drug, waiting a certain amount of time, measuring the level of that drug in the patient's body, and then adjusting the dosage accordingly. I know, you cannot make this stuff up. Except apparently you can, and you get paid really well for it. But not anymore. So the courts were like, yeah, no, this was like an abstract mental process, and then the human body. Like those two things together don't create patentable subject matter. This one is pretty exciting because this is a case where the courts decided to award attorney fees to the users. So someone got sued for patent infringement. The court said, not only no to that patent infringement case, but I can't believe you wasted my and everybody else's time with this ridiculous, frivolous case. You're going to pay the loser's attorney fees. Which is awesome because that means that the entities that like to bring lawsuits and know that they have basically nothing to lose finally have something to lose. It's not perfect because it doesn't cover discovery, and you can't get like back all the sleepless nights you spent worrying if your business was going to be completely wiped out by a patent troll. But attorney's fees sort of starts to level out the amount of irritation that you get as the sued person versus the zero accountability for the suer. That's not the real word for this, but this one as well, and this might come back. Akamai is really never say die on this one. Akamai versus Limelight. This was, Akamai said they had a patent on this process by which people could listen to music on the internet and choose stuff like from a server and things like that. And it is on the internet. I know. The internet's pretty great, right? But this particular case, Akamai said not just Limelight, but Limelight plus its users are together performing an infringing act. Which would have been like, what? Are you kidding me? So, like, after suing Limelight, they could then go after the user, maybe? It definitely would have set very dangerous precedent, but the Supreme Court was like, no, we are not going to get in there and help you make users plus a web service a contributory infringement situation. That's not acceptable. Yeah. I actually don't know when that patent was filed. It was mostly decided in 2014, so it would have probably been, it could have been on the books for as long as like 23 years, because it took a long time for it to get to the Supreme Court level. So that one could be old, but it's not, if you're thinking of the kiosk patent, it's not that one. It's something Akamai actually filed.
Well, I was thinking of the basic concept of
music on the internet.
Selecting music from a menu and then having it play. I mean, I've seen Death Spectre do that with filter servers.
Yeah, no, and there are a lot of really bogus patents in this area, and especially a lot of them happen to be older. The kiosk one I mentioned was like, I missed the window for this, but you used to be able to go to the mall and put in a blank cassette, and then you'd have to go walk around for an hour while it like put all the songs on for you. And so the company that had a patent on that eventually went out of business because nobody wanted to use cassette tapes anymore. And somebody bought that patent up and was like, hey, music from a central repository? Like, sweet! I'm going to go use this as a stick to beat people with. But that one is no longer valid. It's too old. So this is a new, and it has some like syntactic sugar so far as like, you know, the way that it interacts with the server. But we can talk about that more later. Anyway, so most of the recent cases in the lower courts have upheld these decisions, which is great because it means the courts are starting to be like, sweet, I see this big pile of bogus junk in my courtroom, and I finally get to say, like, the door's over there, bye. And so, you know, if you read some of the very initial cases, like, the decisions are basically like, you know, a big sloppy puppy kiss from the Federal Circuit to the Supreme Court. So, some of the cases, you know, so the first round was like kind of, I guess what I would call low-hanging fruit, where it was like, that is just math on a computer. This one is, this is interface applications plus speech recognition. So like two kind of abstract things, on a computer. And the courts were like, I see what you did there. You put two abstract things on a computer. No. And then this one is, I'm trying to remember, this is price optimization, and then looking at a demand and then adjusting the price back again. So it's two fairly common business ideas, but they're being done on the internet. And the courts again were like, I see you did two business ideas on the internet. No, you can't have that one. And then this one, this is just detecting certain types of paternal DNA in utero, which apparently, so it's a natural process, but it's been around for a while. People have been using it for a while. So it's not novel, but then they were putting it into a computer and looking at it on the computer. And the courts were like, wait, natural process plus a computer. No, you can't have that patent either. This has all led to a lot of discussion at the USPTO about patent quality. And so they're aware that they've probably been the butt of my jokes and other people's jokes for a long time. So they're revising their processes. They have, on their website, it says, initiatives for more robust technical training and expertise. So a lot of discussion about patent quality. A lot of discussion on webinars. So the USPTO has webinars. the Patent Quality Chat Lunchtime Webinar Series on the second Tuesday of every month. That's a quote from their website. Yeah. No, I guess if you read really super verbose stuff all day, it's hard to remember to like get to the point in your own stuff. And then lawyer websites are offering webinars on writing patents that, if not skirting the intent of Alice, at least are skirting the letter of Alice, so that you can make your abstract ideas sound less abstract, all kinds of things. So there's like been all these webinars and all these discussions about improving patent quality. I thankfully don't have to attend any webinars at all.
Really well.
Right, yeah. Yes. Well, and some of the cases, there's been a little bit of backlash. Like this one is where, so the Supreme Court decided this and said, like, Federal Circuit, go back and look at it. This one is basically, have you ever done, like, the treadmill thing where you put your hands on the things and they're, like, hand width apart and they're approximately human hand sized, right? Okay. So, company has a patent on that, but they know that human hand size and human hand width is like a body part thing, and they can't talk about it. So they threw all this verbiage on top to be like, you know, at a certain ratio and blah, blah, blah. And the Federal Circuit, so the lower court was like, yeah, that doesn't sound like a thing. And then the Federal Circuit was like, well, of course that's a thing. And then the Supreme Court said, no one can read that thing and figure out even what they're talking about unless you actually looked at the thing. And they're not, the verbiage they've put in here is not actually the thing that they want the patent on. They want it on what we all know is human hand size stuff. And so the Supreme Court said to the Federal Circuit, hey, can you look at this again and maybe try applying the Alice stuff to it? Like, you know, come on. Like, why am I telling you how to do your job type of thing? And the Federal Circuit was like, yeah, I don't know. It still seems really patent-y to us. And so there's like been a little bit of pushback where, and a lot of like very kind of like public hand-wringing about how things are just moving too fast. And, you know, we've got, a multi-billion-dollar industry that could be disturbed. You know, there's all this fear that if we don't have really robust to the point of ridiculous and frivolous patents, that innovation will stop. People will just be like, yeah, that's cool. I'll just write on a piece of bark with like a rock, you know, no big deal, like, because, you know, I can't patent it or whatever, which is probably not true. And, you know, we're looking at a situation where 4 out of 5 of the current software patents might be invalid, which would be fantastic, except for the things that Alice did not do, which is what I'm going to talk about next. So it didn't fix 20 years of bad patents. Patents have a lifespan of 20 years. And if you're savvy about it, you can sue people for past infringement after the patent's gone away. People don't do that too often, but you could if you were determined. And we think even if 4 out of 5 of the patents that are on the books are bad, like I said, that's still 40 or 50,000 software patents that are valid, even with Alice and Mayo in the mix. The profitability of patent suits for plaintiffs has not changed that much. So when I talked about the Octane case, that was one case that gave some precedent. 43% of cases where that's been discussed, some attorney fees have been rewarded. But if you are savvy about how to bring these cases, then you just play those numbers. You're like, okay, so maybe 43% of the time we'll have to pay attorney's fees. Like, so that probably means we just bring a few more suits and it'll all balance out. Maybe we have to, like, improve our patent suit quality or something. I'm sure there are those discussions. I'm not on those mailing lists, thank God. But, yeah. So it's still very profitable to bring a patent suit because the overwhelming number of them get settled out of court because people get a letter and they're like, you want $5,000. It usually costs me $2,000 to talk to my lawyer and explain what's going on, and then you're going to want discovery. Discovery is this process by which one set of lawyers sends the other set of lawyers a request for documents. And that if you're trying to just be a jerk, you can request like 5 years of emails with the word computer printed out for in 7 copies each, because we have 7 attorneys on the case, and so you need to mail us like 2,500 pages of printed out emails, 7 boxes each, whatever. So it's the discovery can be extremely time consuming and extremely expensive. So most people know this and they settle. So if you do go and pay the $2,000 to talk to your lawyer, he will tell you, or she will tell you that, yeah, it's probably going to cost you much more than that to even get it through the first round of discovery, so you might as well just pay the $5,000. So patent suits are still very profitable if you lowball them. And if you highball them, too, if you have one of the quote-unquote good patents, right? And as I said, it's very expensive for defendants, and that acts as a huge push towards settlement. It does not make us safe from so-called good patents. So the ones that Alice wouldn't read on, that are like a little bit more than an abstract thing implemented on a generic computer, but still very much a software patent. That stuff, even if you went all the way through to the end, the courts may be like, well, we actually don't have any tools to say, like, yeah, this is kind of a dumb patent. And it's like, well, but it's not an abstract one, so unfortunately you still have to pay. And Alice did not fix this problem. Do you guys know where this is? Well, it says Eastern Texas, but this is the courthouse. And this is the Samsung ice rink. You guys know, Texas is hot. This is ridiculous. They were just like, well, if we're going to constantly be trying to win over jurors in East Texas, like, let's buy them an ice rink. Yeah, basically, yeah. So, yeah, we didn't, Alice did not fix Eastern Texas. And this is, approximately, like, 43% of all U.S. patent cases go here, between 40 and 50% per year. The next case, it's like more than the next 17 districts combined. So, people who bring patent suits know they want to go to Eastern Texas. And the reason is that East Texas, never have seen a discovery request that seemed too extreme for them. They're like, yeah, 2,500 pages, 7 copies each. Yeah, that sounds, super reasonable to us. So that kind of also puts pressure on the defendant to settle. So that is part of why Eastern Texas is very popular. The other reason that Eastern Texas is very popular is because once you get away from the courthouse and the ice rink, it's basically farmland. So their jury pool is extremely unsavvy about tech. So if you spend 3 weeks talking about, like, a chip in here that's amazing and the most amazing thing that ever happened to technology, that jury is likely to be like, yeah, okay. So that's the other problem with Eastern Texas. So 2,540 patent cases in Eastern District of Texas last year. There actually is a case that might be coming through that might offer some relief for that, but I think I'll talk about it in a minute. And it also doesn't make us safe from new cases. So Alice does not preclude another case from coming down the pike to rein in the super fast dismantling of this amazing profitable innovation system propped up by patents. All the quotes. So another case could come down and could make its way through the courts that would narrow the impact of the Alice decision. So this is one of the ones that people think, like, oh, this is like a good software patent. And it's possible that people might decide that's the case. So this is McRo versus Namco. Is you guys have seen cartoons, right? Okay, you know how, like, they move their mouths, right? So for any given, like, sound that you make, they have assigned a value between 1 and 0. So, like, 1 is and then 0 is so moo, like, is the spectrum there. And so what they've done is someone has gone and figured out, like, for each sound in the English language, which value between 1 and 0 should be applied to the cartoon person's mouth. Yeah, no, lots of people have done it, and so this patent it's not that whole process, it's actually just a slight optimization of the process that, like, automates it a little bit more. Then it's like one step more automated than it previously was. And so this case is what people are saying, like, this one might be, oh, well, there are some good software patents. That's what people are saying, right? Which is like, I don't know. But it's very visual. Like, a jury is going to look at that and be like, I totally understand exactly what that invention is. Unlike everything else that, we've discussed today. They'd be like, cartoons. I like cartoons. I'm glad they talk and don't, fall in that uncanny valley and creep out my kids. Like, yeah, okay. So this is one of those cases that may roll back some of the progress that was made in the Alice case. Lots of legislation's been proposed, but none has passed. The key piece of legislation that would actually make a difference is fee shifting and discovery costs. So we talked about discovery, reams of dead trees being sent back and forth across the country of printed out emails, and codifying and making it a little bit more specific, like when you can make the plaintiff pay the defendant's legal fees. So a lot of the legislation that's been proposed so far is like around transparency. You may be shocked to hear that currently when you send a letter to someone to say, I think that you're infringing on a patent I have, that you don't have to say who you are, what that patent is, or what the activity they're engaging in that infringes on it, if you don't want it, which seems ridiculous, right? It's pretty hard to say, like, I'm opposed to transparency because it makes you sound really shady. But the fee shifting and the discovery cost one is the one that's really hitting a wall. A lot of the folks who either bring a lot of patent suits or lawyers who bring those suits are saying, like, that's too far. So we'll see. There's also been a lot of, like, very public hand-wringing, like I said, the webinars. But really, like, people kind of, like, Chicken Little, like, the sky is falling, like, we're killing innovation and stuff. This is a quote from someone talking about one of the cases that followed from Mayo. Disaster survivors, they're overwhelmed, and then they can only rationally process its significance after some time. Like, this is, like, seems more like someone talking about PTSD or something, right? This is someone saying the Mayo case was the thing that, like, so there's been some fairly dramatic and ridiculous hand-wringing about, like, reforming the patent system to level the playing field and make it not like, it's great to be a plaintiff, too bad it sucks to be a defendant, whatever. So, you can kind of imagine, I assume that this person usually represents the plaintiff. Right. So, another thing that folks have been doing a little bit of hand-wringing on, so the America Invents Act, which is a piece of legislation that we did actually get to pass around patents and innovation, provided a process called inter partes review. So this means that you can say, oh, hey, it looks like we're fighting about a patent that might not be valid. Maybe we should send it back to the USPTO and ask them to do their job this time. Which seems like, yeah, why not? But there's been a lot of, like, accusation of people using this, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, sort of like punitively. No one can provide numbers on the punitive use of inter partes review. It's always like some lawyer has a cousin that has a friend who goes to school with someone who saw it happen, but, like, nobody actually has any numbers on inter partes review being used in a really punitive way any significant amount of time. But it's kind of this straw man argument that's being discussed. One of the other things, like, so you guys know who this is, right? The pharma industry makes a lot of people mad. The other thing that is interesting about the inter partes review is that you don't have to be an involved party to take a patent to the inter partes review. Martin Shkreli, he was he was selling the AIDS medication for like $10,000 a pill or something like that.
It wasn't just $10,000 a pill. At first it was something like $1 a pill, and then he jacked it up.
Yeah, it's...
Well, generic.
Yeah, if you ever have a day when you want to be like more angry and more disappointed in like human beings, look this dude up. But so the like pharma has been, they really don't want more regular people involved in deciding what goes on in their industry. So there's a guy who's been making big pharma really mad because he has been challenging pharma patents. He's not a lawyer. He's not being sued by them. He can't be sued by them because he's not in the pharmaceutical industry. He just is sick of paying a lot of money for medications, and he's like, I'll see if I can get some of these patents overturned. Like, you finally pissed me off enough that, like, I'm just going to make it my mission to screw you over.
Somewhere I found, probably in an old court file, it's not become someone's problem.
Yeah, that's probably, and that is, and the pharma industry has been like, la, 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 I can't hear you for a really long time. And so the inter partes review thing finally gave individuals an opportunity to be like, oh, yeah, I'm coming for you. And more worrying, so the USPTO doesn't really like to separate the specific fields of patentable stuff. And so we've been seeing big pharma and big software working together against the fee-shifting stuff, trying to keep the inter partes review. They want to reform it back so that regular people, like, can't get involved. I mean, if there's... Right. So it's one of those things where lawyers hate seeing other people doing their job. Maybe more so than coders. I don't know. We'll have to duke that one out over beer. So we've got big pharma doing that. So on to the global situation. While we've been doing all of this in the U.S. and the rest of the world largely has been looking on in horror, but not all of it. So we'll go. One of the things that's very interesting with the global situation, you may remember that while we're having this kind of discussion about the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, that we signed a thing a long time ago with Canada called NAFTA. And that has some very similar language around patents and copyrights and things like that. For folks who are not familiar with how these trade agreements go, it's if you're a company and you want to do business in a country that signed a trade agreement, you can say, you agreed to this lowest common denominator situation with regards to like health, human safety, and intellectual property. And if we feel like you haven't lowered your standards sufficiently enough to meet the letter of the agreement that you signed, we can sue you in a special court called the Investor Settlement Dispute Investor State Dispute Settlement, ISDS. So Eli Lilly, which is a giant pharma company, has lots and lots of different drugs, but one in particular they want to keep having a patent on. And so a great trick that pharma loves to do is to change one non-active molecule on a drug and then try and get a patent for it for another 20 years. And this is one of those things that they just, it's like probably in their, whatever they have for documentation. Like every 20 years, change a molecule, go back to the patent office. Canada was like, yeah, no. And Eli Lilly was like, no, you signed this NAFTA thing that said you were going to be a total pushover about patents. And now we want our ridiculous bullshit patent. Sorry, BS patent. And if you don't give it to us, then we want all the money we would have gotten from 20 more years of having this patentable and charging whatever we would like for it. This is still at ISDS. So while we've got this going on in Canada, we are we're in the process of considering signing the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, which has similar language. So even if we fix the patent situation here in the U.S., we may at some point be asked to bring it back down to the lowest common denominator of what we signed with the rest of the Pacific Rim countries. So this is very worrying. And that's, I love that people make these things on the internet like, the TPP is crap, is what I'm saying. It's not just us. So While we have been stockpiling patents in the U.S., a lot of Asian countries that used to be kind of like, I don't know what you mean, all this like IP stuff, blah, blah, blah. They figured it out, and they figured out that it's basically a license to print money. So Japan, Korea, and then most recently China have started patenting all the time. China in particular likes bringing suits in China with Chinese judges who treat our defendants similar to the way we treat Chinese defendants when they come to the U.S., which is to say the Chinese judges rule for the Chinese inventor most of the time, which is no different than actually what we do here. We tend to rule for the local company more often than not. So there are now a lot of patents in China, and so even if we decide to narrow the scope of patentability here in the U.S., we may be beholden to the level of what's patentable in Japan or Australia or one of the other Pacific Rim signers. So China's not a signer, but it sort of affects the way that patents are treated in the whole region. And so, yeah, so this is, I couldn't find a graph on it, but it's one of these exponentials. So even if we fix the situation in the U.S., Ian managed to not sign the TPP. We'll still probably be going to China for a while to defend ourselves against software patents. European software patents. When I go over to Europe, they like to say they don't have them, which is actually not true. They just don't have quite as many. And they have a slightly narrower scope of patentability than we do in the U.S., although the Alice decision may have brought us a bit closer to the situation in Europe. And then occasionally the way that precedences play out in Europe is a little bit more patchworky. It's very clear, like if the Supreme Court says do this, the U.S. courts are like, yes, we have to do that. Or we have to at least pretend that we think we're doing that. Which is a slightly different thing, but it's, they have to at least follow the letter, if not the spirit. European courts are kind of like, oh, we didn't decide that one applied to us or whatever. So there was a recent patent granted in Germany, which is, again, let's see, what was this one? It's really hard to remember the mnemonics on these guys. This is Image Stream, which is it's a graphical user interface that separates images that are too fast for the human eye to process. So it's a bit of discussion about how the human eye works, and then separating it into multiple windows on a computer. So we're starting to see more, kind of a few years ago style U.S. patents in Europe. So they have no patents, they have patents, they have less patents, their patents are better, I don't know. It really depends on the specific district and exactly what's going on in that court. So it's a little bit more of a hodgepodge. So they are granting patents. Germany has a bunch of patents on the book. And there are other places, like there are patents in the UK, there are patents in France. A lot of European countries have patents on software stuff, or stuff that might also be overturned if they had to defend it under Alice, which they don't because they're American. So the long and the short of it. So for the short term, I work at the Open Invention Network, just so you know. We run a defensive patent pool, and this one is specifically around Linux, GNU, Android, etc. So, given the discussion that we had about the legislature doing something about protecting us from frivolous and overly broad patent aggression cases, and the discussion of how the courts are kind of waffling, like moving slowly in the correct direction, but not always in the correct direction. In the meantime, if you work on like Linux, GNU, Android, open source stuff, you can join a defensive patent pool, and you can at least cross 2,000 companies off the list of people that might sue you. We could use them in other areas. I had a conversation with someone who's in semiconductors, and they're like, oh man, I wish someone would do that for semiconductors, because we all sue each other every year, all the time, and it is ridiculous. And there are probably some other areas. I don't know enough about pharma to know if that's just a complete fantasy, but, from my perspective, it certainly couldn't hurt, right? So defensive patent pools, that's one way that you could go. The license on transfer network, which is, this is just starting to be a little bit more used. This is a number of different companies that have signed on to an agreement saying, if we sell our patents, you won't be able to be sued by a patent troll under them. Which sounds, it's sort of confusing, right? Basically, if they sell them to a company, like if you signed on to their network, so like, like there's a few dozen companies in there, any patent that gets sold comes with this license that says, if you are a patent troll or turn into a patent troll, you can't sue any of the companies that signed on to this license. It'll be interesting to see how the courts play that out, and the way that they define a patent troll is any entity that makes more than 50% of its revenue through patent aggression. So this one is new. People are just starting to do that, but the idea, this is very much troll focused. So like, practicing entities could still sue each other under these under this agreement. But trolls, if they got a hold of a patent or a company, we see this sometimes, like a company was using an older technology and then kind of like down on their luck, they do a ton of layoffs, and then like their cousin, the lawyer, shows up and is like, you know what we could do? And this happens more often than you'd think. And they're like, we could just become a patent troll. Like, it's brilliant. We don't need any of those pesky engineers anymore. Just you and I. We just split the cash. And so if one of the patents that was in this network ends up going to a company that turns out like that, all of those signers of the network at that time would be able to say, like, yeah, actually, you can't sue us because this particular patent came with this contract that comes with it. So we'll see how effective that is. I don't know of any success stories on that yet, but it's still pretty new. So, but it's interesting that people are exploring these different types of community solutions and not waiting for the legislature to get out of the pocket of big pharma. Defensive publishing is another thing you can do. This can, like, if you have something that you know is new and would actually be patentable, you can tell the USPTO, like, hey, I made this, but I don't want you to give anyone a patent on it. So that looks sort of like a patent application, but it creates prior art for the US Patent Office. And so then you can say, like, oh, you can't give a patent on that because I already told you it's not new because I did it last year. And the Open Invention Network will help you do that if it's a Linux one. You can also push your workplace to embrace defense instead of offense. There are a couple of companies that have stuff where, like Twitter has this pledge where they say, if you invented it, we won't use it for patent aggression unless you want us to. I don't know how, again, some of these are new and untried, so I don't know how effective that is. It's nice that they're saying that they don't want to engage in sort of punitive or anti-competitive patent aggression, but what does that actually mean? But there are other workplaces that specifically, like, you can see their actions and they specifically don't work on patent aggression. Red Hat's a really good example. They have patents. They use them for defense only. Every time something that would, push out the scope of patentability comes to the court or make it more, enable more ridiculous patenting, they send a friend of the court brief over. So if your workplace is like, yeah, we don't want to be evil, and you'd be like, yes, put it in writing and tell everyone about it, and, we as a group will hold you to it. For long term, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, boo. We don't work on that specifically at OIN, but our fine friends at the Free Software Foundation and the Electronic Frontier Foundation are both working on that. So go down, give them your money, sign up to whatever they want you to do. It's gonna be good. And they're working. These are policy organizations. They work on policy stuff. So this is their area of expertise. For the patent issue specifically, the Innovation Act and the Patent Act are the ones that have the fee shifting and reining in the discovery cost stuff. So there are patent acts. There are proposed pieces of legislation in each, in the House and the Senate, that are just the transparency stuff. These are the bills that actually have the real teeth and would take some of the sweet money off the table for plaintiffs. Or at least, say you have to bring less frivolous suits, and only ones. It makes it harder to bring ones that are more ridiculous, which again is a little good, but it's not the best, right? So that's why we're working on it from a couple different directions. And then keep advocating for free software. I think that the more we collaborate together as a group, the more we work on stuff, the more we get involved in each other's projects and swap employees at all different companies, like the less we want to see each other, right? So hopefully that's the case, right? If this is the reading, this is the super simple one on the 1 year review of Alice. This is a case that might end up ending the East Texas reign, as far as like the only place that you can apparently bring patent suits. That particular case, it's not about software at all. It's just a patent case on a food additive. But because the precedent would be set about deciding the forum, it would have very far-reaching impact for our industry as well. And then if you're interested in seeing what's going on with Chinese patenting, the TLDR is that it looks a lot like American patenting from like 10 or 15 years ago, which we all know how that turned out, so... and then Patent Progress is another organization that tracks the legislation around patent reform and stuff like that. And, of course, there are picture credits. And I would be happy to take your questions. Thanks. Emily.
Just curious.
Oh.
You asked.
Well, didn't you ask?
Eastern Texas and Texas is a state of bad things, but how are these companies are going to East Texas to bring these lawsuits?
How are they doing it?
How can they do that if they aren't based there?
How do they do it? Okay, so the question is, like, how do companies get to bring a lawsuit in East Texas if they're not based there? So, for the patent issue in particular, usually they just have to find one user in that district of the software. Another way that would be more common, they have a mailbox there, the PO box. So there's an NPR special about like all the fake offices that they've got. And there's a couple other ways. Like you could be like, oh, well, you guys are on the West Coast, we're on the East Coast. Like, why don't we just do it in the middle? So there's a lot of ways that there's a sort of conventional wisdom that the courts favor the frequent litigator. So if you understand how the game is played, you know the personalities involved, you know the like code words to say. So you're like, I'd really like to do this in East Texas because our legal office is there. So for some judges, that's what they want to hear. For others, it's like, oh, we have some customers there, and that type of thing. So they know how to play the game to get the cases brought right there. And there's plenty online of why that is, which is it's very disingenuous, and nobody thinks otherwise. Emily, and then I'll go back here.
I find it fascinating that you say that East Texas is partly advantageous because of the relatively non-tech savvy juror pool.
Yeah.
Well, yes, hypothetically, everybody in tech with a remote job all moved there.
Well, you'd still have to agree to be on the jury. Oh, so Emily's question is about making the juror pool more technically savvy. So probably only about 10% of the cases brought in East Texas go all the way to a jury trial. It's kind of like that, dangling whatever a thing you don't want. It's like okay, well, if you don't want to settle, look out there on the prairie. We're going to start picking jurors, and so just the threat of the jurors tends to make that not the case. It's also jury pools in general tend to be older people because they have time to be on the jury pool. And so we'd have to not only move to Texas, but be willing to spend 3 weeks getting $40 a day instead of whatever you normally make working remote to be on the jury pools. And then we'd also, it would take a while for it to build up enough of us being on the jury. I think that there's a couple of reasons it wouldn't work. As fun as it would be for us to all live in the same place and ice skate every day. The fellow in the green shirt, and then I'll go over here.
Well, I don't know exactly how it works. The company in Maryland is suing a company in Oregon. So the decision where the whole case is being made in one of those states, don't the judges in those states in order to make decisions according to this case or this case?
Yeah, well, so the East Texas, just to be clear, the courthouse in East Texas is very excited about the extra business. So, like, the town has nothing there. They now have, like, a couple of nice fancy steak restaurants across the street from the courthouse. Like, the initial judges who were there got to hire, like, basically everyone that they ever wanted to have a favor owed to. Like, the East Texas is definitely like a yes, please bring it. They're not a like, wow, how'd this happen? It's part of what is going on in that courthouse that makes it so appealing.
So, but it judges in other jurisdictions.
Well, so it'd have to be a circuit court, and then if they don't see it, they can't impact the like if it doesn't go to them, they can't impact the process. So it's yeah. So.
No, they can fight when the filing because the claims attorney files it in a particular court, the other attorney can fight for it.
But Texas won't grant it usually. They'll be like, no, that makes perfect sense for it to be here. Yeah. Yeah.
Can they go to another state and apply for the
well, you could countersue them in another state if you wanted to. I mean, that's and people do that too. Some folks over here have had their hands up for a little bit. Okay. So I'll do Spencer and then the fellow on the back row there. Ben.
So, to me, if someone going to be verification valid, being on generic computers not valid, is that spurring innovation to move away from generalized computing and go back to building the thing that does X?
Yeah, so this question is the Alice decision driving people to move away from building things for generic computers? No, that's not happening. It's going to happen. The way that people word it, they make it sound like they're taking. It'll take a little while before we start seeing like what the USPTO has decided to do in the wake of Alice. But right now they're throwing a couple of different things at them. One of those things might turn out to be language where it interacts with the hardware a little bit more specially or something like that. But I haven't seen any numbers on exactly how that's going through the courts yet. And then I had Ben in the back, and then he'll go over here.
I was wondering if you were following what was happening with Newegg fighting off patent trolls.
Oh, yeah. Actually, so the question is about Newegg fighting off patent trolls. No, that's fantastic. And I think it makes the folks who are doing patent trolls so they might fight back? Okay. It's fantastic. He was recently on a panel for the from CES talking about that. It's pretty great if you want to see him talk about his work there. And then I just saw him at Linux Collab too, talking about why he decided that he's basically just like, who are you to come in and take stuff that we worked really hard to make? Like, I say no, even though it's going to be long hours and not as lucrative as like rolling over and letting you pay in the short term. But in long term, having patent trolls come and screw you, pay me every 5 minutes, not a good business model.
My question is about if you think that's a valid strategy or is there a better option somewhere else?
Oh, is it a valid strategy? Yeah. If you have the money and the leeway to do it, then I would say yes. And in fact, for Newegg, they're a very lightweight kind of business because they sell all their stuff online. If they paid out to patent trolls, that would eat up their advantage in the market. So they kind of got backed into a wall where they're like, oh, if we pay this out, we're going to have to pass the cost along to consumers, and then our competitive advantage of being an online business is basically wiped out. So no. So I think it makes a lot of sense for them. Well, sure. I mean, they're overturning patents, but nothing's gone all the way up to the top that's set, defining doctrine that changes the way all the other cases have been brought. But when they overturn a patent where they've been sued, no one else can be sued on that patent because it's been overturned. So they're setting that kind of precedent. The gentleman in the front row, and then
Quickly going back to the Eastern filing in Eastern Texas.
yeah.
Doesn't that tread on jurisdictional issues?
Does it tread on jurisdictional issues? Like, how do you mean? Oh, well, so that's what all the fake offices are about.
Okay,
Yeah, the P.O. box or the customer, the one they probably. Who knows? That person might be like a paid, regular customer of who knows. No one's found that person yet, but I wouldn't be surprised to find out they exist.
So this person's getting all of these copies of software. Claim they use.
We don't know. There was one over here, and then I'll go to the side.
So as far as you
No. Sometimes well, so you can't countersue a troll because they're not making anything. So you can only sue people for infringing behavior. So that means you can only countersue companies that are also creating a product. You can't just countersue someone because you're like mad they sued you. It's too bad. You can ask for attorney fees, and if you can demonstrate that the whole process was like a giant waste of everybody's time, then you might get the attorney fees. And the Octane case gave courts that were leaning that direction and wanting to award attorney's fees to the winners when they've been sued on a frivolous suit some precedent for doing that, but it's only happening about 43% of the time. And I don't know the specific numbers for Newegg, so they're probably getting their fees back some of the time, but not all the time. So, and they're deterring people from suing Newegg. So now, I mean, they still get letters, but yeah.
They withdrew it, and then Newegg sued them for withdrawing.
Yeah, there's a lot of really great stories about the, 7 layers deep of shell corporations not remembering who they're supposed to sue and who they're not supposed to sue. There's like a great one where Nathan Myhrvold sued himself by accident. He's the owner of Intellectual Ventures. And a journalist noticed it. They're like, oh, that's real weird that whole slate of defendants includes an organization that Nathan Myhrvold's on the board of. And then they just quietly moved that company off the list of defendants. So apparently it's possible to sue yourself by accident. If you have a huge and confusing organization and network of trolls. So, did you have a question over here on the side?
Yeah, it's giving me a few other comments. Is patent trolling in general causing pressure for companies to move overseas? Are there international safe harbors that you are to exploit?
Oh, so the question is patent trolling in general causing companies to move overseas? If it is, then they're pretty sadly mistaken about being safe from patent trolls overseas. So, you could get standing to be sued in the U.S. as long as you have customers in the U.S., which, most software that's not, that's written in English has U.S. customers. Second, there's I'm trying to remember what they're called. There's Conversant, which is a patent troll. They've got a lot of the Nokia patents that were acquired by Microsoft and then spun off to we don't know who they are, except we totally do. So that organization has an office in Luxembourg, which is it's kind of like the Delaware of Europe. And then they also have an office in Ottawa. I don't know what's going on in Canada, but so there are trolls in Europe, and there are trolls in other jurisdictions, and you can, if you have U.S. users of your software, you can always be sued in the U.S.
And most companies are going to
Extradite is for a person.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, so the thing is so when you sue someone for patent infringement, you say you have to stop the infringing activity, which means stop providing this service or this good or selling this thing to anyone here. So most companies, if you said oh, okay, so all you have to do to avoid coming to the U.S. to fight a patent suit is just make sure that no one in the U.S. is able to use or buy or lease or whatever your product.
You could just say no. It's for you, right? I mean, if you're fully incorporated overseas.
No, that's not how it works. Right, so you wouldn't be able to ship your product to the U.S. And you wouldn't be able to provide your software to the U.S.
But if you're doing it over the internet, how would they that's what I meant.
Yeah, there's been a lot of... So I've had this conversation with a couple of developers in Europe, and sure, at a certain level, if you're... if you're VLC and you're providing stuff for free, you could play that shell game of, you don't know what country we're really in for a while, but eventually, say a U.S.-based distribution decides to roll your package in, then they get sued instead. So as long as you're willing to be not particularly successful, you can avoid getting sued in the U.S. So Yeah, if people are moving overseas to get away from that situation, then they wasted a lot of money. I hope they like their new home. I think we're almost done, but I'll take one.
Yeah, just a comment.
Mm-hmm.
I think a few years ago I read that New Zealand has some law so you can't copyright a patent software.
New Zealand?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. And they're like very upset about the discussion going on around the TPP because it took them a really long time to say like no to software patents in New Zealand, and then their leadership is considering signing the TPP, which means that they would have to accept software patents again. And it's, I mean, it's not that they have no software patents, but it's like a very narrow scope of patentability with regards to software in New Zealand. So they're like the free software people in New Zealand really, really, really want to keep local control over the scope of patentability. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. Feel free to email me if you want to ask questions or talk to me about the defensive pool.